Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. My name is Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left, once again, for the second week in a row, is Phil Davidson with the Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council, MACRC, as you guys say.
Absolutely. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for filling in again. Appreciate it. I heard you guys last week when I was catching fish in Florida.
Yeah,
And
Babe Winkleman over here.
And I know you doubted my ability to catch fish. And when I say fish, I mean one fish.
Yep.
Because I literally didn't catch a single fish for 5 days. So I extended my trip 3 more days, and I caught one fish.
You landed a lunker. How big?
It was Phil, of course, it was huge.
Oh,
God, it was so big.
I saw the picture on Facebook.
Yeah, some people call it bait. I think I caught bait. So listen. While I was down there, in Florida,
did you see your buddy DeSantis?
I didn't see him, but I certainly had enough conversations with people about him. And I don't know if you saw this in the news, but Disney is suing DeSantis right now, and the case is called Goofy v. Goofy.
Okay.
That's a Ken Edwards original.
Pretty good.
Yeah. But I asked people down there, I'm like, what do you think about this? And, to a person, they're like, oh, I love DeSantis and whatever. And I was like, okay. You're going to love it when Disney moves to North Carolina? Oh, I don't care. I don't live in Orlando. I'm like, I don't think you're getting the concept here,
Big bite out of the economy, right?
Yeah. Taking on Disney, I just think is a mistake. And I think he's going to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Disney actually... Yeah, I think they had layoffs, et cetera, but they also just recently settled a pretty large contract, if I'm not mistaken, with their Goofies,
Yes, they did.
And I think it was actually a pretty hefty contract as well. So,
and I was reading that he's losing a lot of his clout even amongst his Republican backers there because they're not the party that wants to go after private business. And there's only so much they can take, and when it becomes a personal vendetta of him against Disney, they're like, this is not what we're signing up for here, man,
And, and to those listening in Florida, because I know we have millions of Floridians that listen.
National program.
Yeah. Then, what happened to government leaving business alone? Just leave it alone. Let them do their thing. What happened to capitalists, right? Aren't you I, of course, call this convenient capitalism, right? You're a capitalist when it suits you, and you're not when it doesn't. So, I don't know. Whatever. In other news here, we had talked about a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month or two ago when you guys were on, the carpenters were on and talking about wage theft and all the things that the carpenters have been doing about that. I just read that Rosati's entered into a consent decree to pay, I think there were 5 locations, to pay their workers back $250,000. Imagine that?
In back pay.
In back pay. They paid them in pizza. They didn't pay them in pizza. I just made that up.
That'd be a lot of pizza.
That's a lot of pizza. But can you imagine, Rosati's, right? It's a Chicagoland institution.
Yep.
And they're going to misclassify their workers. They're going to somehow,
Is that what was going on there?
That's what I guess it was alleged.
Yeah.
There was an article in the Trib about it. And they had to pay damages as well. So, $250,000 is... I don't know Rosati's budget, but that's not a small amount of money.
Oh.
And, it goes back to kind of what you guys, the carpenters, have been doing, which is, let's make sure that people understand what they're entitled to.
Yes.
Right? Some people don't know that they're entitled to overtime after 40 hours. Right?
Absolutely.
They literally don't know that.
And not only that, what they're entitled to for workers' compensation.
Yeah.
For paid time off. We now have a law on that in the books in Illinois. There's just... Of course, when someone walks up to you and says, hey, I'm going to pay you in cash on the table, it's very attractive. But when you take a moment to think about all the benefits that you're losing by getting paid in cash as an independent contractor, it's,
you're not getting your Social Security paid into. You're probably not getting benefits. What does cash do for you? And then, of course, cash also forces you to lie to the IRS, right? And if you get caught doing that, now you're jammed up anyway. And is the employer going to go, come save you from the IRS? No.
Probably not.
Yeah, they're going to deny.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to send their legal team over.
Yeah, so, for those of you that are in that situation, get familiar with this stuff. Basically Google the Department of Labor, Illinois Department of Labor, who we had the head of the Department of Labor on a couple of weeks ago. Google them. There's a ton of information out there as to what your rights are and, learn them. And for the employers out there that are misclassifying workers, cheating workers out of pay overtime, making them, just stay another 15 minutes or whatever. Stop it, right?
Yes.
Treat your workers right. Otherwise, guess what? What are they going to do? They're going to organize.
They're going to organize.
That's
They're
right.
in big trouble.
Listen, we have to take a quick break, but we're super psyched today to have Tom Tully with us, and he is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Illinois Education Association. We're going to be talking teacher, which is really, really interesting, a whole different world in labor land. So we will be right back here on the Workers' Mic, 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. Sitting next to me is Phil, and we are pleased today to have Tom Tully with the Illinois Education Association. Tom, you are the Secretary-Treasurer?
Correct. Yes, I am.
And what does that mean? What do you do?
It means I represent all of our 135,000 members in financial matters.
Got
Try
it.
to keep them, make sure they're complying with collecting the dues and making sure they're spending it and budgeting it correctly.
And how long have you been doing that?
This is my 6th year. We have term limits, so this is my third year term. So I'm in the final year of my 2nd term, representing all of our
Oh,
educators.
I didn't know. You have term limits? That's
Correct.
interesting. So what happens after your term limit is done?
You can run for office and continue up into the vice president's role would be my next logical step,
Yep.
which I did.
Okay.
And you can also run for president of the association. And while I'm in my position as secretary-treasurer, I'm on leave of absence from my school district so that if something happens, you have some ability to go back to the district in which you were currently teaching. So that is an agreement you have with each school board. in
That's
the
pretty
locals.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about job security, huh?
I love it. Why don't we talk a little bit, just a broader view of the Illinois Education Association, the IEA, and you said 135,000 members in Illinois, located statewide?
Correct. We have 21 offices. We have them from anywhere from Carterville, Illinois, to Libertyville, to Rushville, to Champaign, to Lombard, to Naperville, to Effingham, to Mount Vernon.
lot of vills.
A lot of Vills.
Edwardsville.
Yeah.
So we have them all across the state. We have members in every county across the state. That's what gives us our power when we want to go to the voting box.
135,000 members in Illinois.
Correct.
That's a really impressive number. And that means
the largest.
Yeah,
the largest union.
You guys are the largest. Are you the largest union in the state?
We're the largest teachers union in the state, and we represent higher education teachers. We represent educational support professionals, K through 12 teachers, nurses, a whole variety of categories who are all educators.
How many different collective bargaining agreements do you have?
Each local has their own bargaining unit. We have probably close to 900 locals across the state, and each of them are bargained individually, which makes it very unique. And as you know, our funding is all done through local property taxes. So a good portion of our 80 to 85% of all funding to our locals comes from their local property taxes, which makes it so important for us to get involved in school board races.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And notably, you do not represent the Chicago teachers.
Correct. There is the Illinois Federation of Teachers also represents. I don't know their numbers. I know they're a little bit smaller than us as far as numbers wise, but the Federation typically across the country represents the urban setting in the cities, and the association, Illinois Education Association or National Education Association, represents suburban and rural, more probably a higher percentage.
And how many members nationally?
Over 3 million members for the National Education Association.
Well, that is amazing. That's great.
Big time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what do you think that your market density here is in Illinois?
Well, we're always trying to make sure we have representation of all who are eligible for it.
Right.
And that's something we've worked hard on since a court decision came down from the Supreme Court with Janus being that kind of what everyone calls it.
Oh, that's a trigger word for Ken.
Yes, it certainly is. So let's stop there, okay? Because we're talking to a broad audience, and so the Janus decision, in a nutshell, made every public employee in the United States what's called right to work, the ability not to pay dues and take advantage of the benefits of the union. And quite frankly, if you've
It's a free ride.
It's free riders. And if you've listened to the show, that was the genesis of the Midwest Coalition of Labor, because our benefits are only available to card-carrying, dues-paying members. which after the show I will make a pitch to you, Tom, as to why the IEA should join us. But we'll talk about that afterwards. But anyway, that's the Janus case, and we've talked about
Always
this in
be
the past.
selling.
What's that?
Always be closing.
Absolutely right. So, and then you're talking about firefighters, cops, teachers, public works guys, streets and sand guys, water rec guys. I mean, every public employee in the United States, not just here in Illinois, does not have to pay dues to their union and can take advantage of the benefits of the union. And what is that designed to do? It's designed to what?
Separate and divide us and make sure that we have some angry people who have stones to throw at us.
Yep.
Divide and conquer.
Correct.
And also hurt the unions economically, right?
Yes.
And, and in the Republican mindset, they believe that by doing that, there's less money going into the coffers of Democrats. And, to an extent, they're probably right. But if you look at, let's talk about firefighters or cops for a quick second. I mean, they lean right, hard right? So I think it's almost, for at least for that segment, it's having a negative impact on donations to Republicans. But that's a story for another day. You guys, Tom.
And sorry to interrupt, Ken, but to be clear, that the Janus decision originated in Illinois. This was something that was led and funded by former Governor Bruce Rauner.
Yes.
And he found an employee who worked for the state, who I believe worked in child services.
I think that's
Mark
right.
Janus.
Yep.
And he was basically the straw man who led this case, but this became a national policy and went to the Supreme Court, but it originated here.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
And, it was a shame because Rauner tried to get on the case and he was tossed off, and a couple other people tried to get on the case and they were tossed off. And I know we're moving to the side here, but, there was only one plaintiff left, and that was Mark Janus.
Yes.
And somehow, he made it all the way to the Supreme Court, funded by, hard right conservative groups that I'm going to ask you about in a second, Tom. But back to your union. And, this was the same for us in the building trades and the carpenters, because we do have public sector members. How did it affect your union?
The Janus decision had very little impact. We did not lose very many members. Our numbers continued to stay consistent, and I think that's a tribute to the benefits we provide and why people believe they have a positive impact by being a part of the union.
Yeah.
You've got to educate people, and obviously you have a lot of misinformation out there, and as long
course.
as you get out in front of it and are able to share the facts about what you can bring to the table and why it's important to join, we were lucky to be able to do that, and I think credit to our staff and our members for putting together talking points to just confirm what we already do for our members.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say, I would disagree with you on one thing, and I wouldn't say that it's luck. I think it's hard work. And you guys have 900 contracts to negotiate separately, which has to, I remember when I worked for 150, we had 130 municipal contracts, and I was responsible for, a third of them. I mean, that was a nightmare. And so that's not an easy task.
Yes, every one of our locals has different variables in their county and local and cities they work in. Some of them have really good tax base for property taxes, some do not. So there's variables are all across the board, and that's why it's important for us to make sure that we meet our members where they need us.
That's right. And they probably have different needs, right? Some, some are about money, some are about management, some are about both, right? Some are about working conditions. I mean, it has to be an amalgamation of everything. Right,
Absolutely.
Phil, just like is no different than a teacher than us in the building trades, right?
Exactly.
Or a police officer. So
I was wondering, did it have the adverse effect and actually brought some of your members closer together when you knew you were under threat with the Janus decision, and did it help build the sense of solidarity and pro-union activism amongst teachers saying, look, they're trying to break us down, but we're going to stand together and we support our union and this is why?
I think it was something that really helped us out. It also helped that the Midwest was hammered with individual state decisions, whether it be Michigan and Wisconsin just come to mind with what their legislators did to them as far as taking away their ability for payroll deduction and other benefits that they enjoyed in those states. We were hearing stories about them, and we were ready with talking points to be able to share and confirm with our members. You don't want what happened in Wisconsin to happen in Illinois. Here's why we need to stay a member of our union. And I think that was helpful for, unfortunately, those bad circumstances that happened in those two states.
We're helpful actually to you guys to maintain solidarity and probably, quite frankly, coalesce solidarity. If you look at what happened in Wisconsin, I know, for example, that in 2020 teachers were paid less than they were in 2015. And they had a dearth of teachers because people were moving, right? Why would you stay there and be a teacher when you have literally no say in your working conditions? Excuse me. And you're making less money than you did 5 years ago.
Correct.
And by the way, go back to this. We didn't talk about this. What did you do before you joined the union? Before you came on staff of the union?
Before I was elected as Secretary-Treasurer, I was a high school special education teacher.
For how long?
24 years as a high school special education teacher, and I'm currently on leave of absence from that local district. And obviously, it makes a difference in how you think about things when you have that all that experience of dealing with kids and parents and local school districts. It brings you some really value added type knowledge as to represent our members as a Secretary-Treasurer. So it kind of transitioned it itself when you get involved in your local union. I was a local grievance chair, I was a local president, and then I transitioned into a national education NEA director, which is a representative from Illinois who travels across the country to Washington, and then you try to get involved in your state union, and I was lucky enough to win the election as Secretary-Treasurer 6 years ago, and it just kind of is a pattern of, you go from point A to point B to point C, and I'm happy with my journey.
Good for you.
Pro-union guy right here.
Yeah, well, that's for sure, but he wouldn't be on otherwise.
No.
Yeah. I got to go back to this. You were a special education teacher, and that takes obviously it takes a certain skill set to do that. I imagine it takes a certain amount of training to do that, and a certain mindset to do that. And first of all, thank you for doing it. I think that's literally doing God's work. And second of all, to the to the right wing, U-lines of the world that would seek to destroy teachers' unions. What happens to somebody in your position that's literally teaching for 20 some odd years their special needs child? You think that parent wants, your wages to go down, your salary to go down, your working conditions to be destroyed? I think it's the opposite. And I don't care where you come from, left, right, or middle, you cannot disagree with that. You want your teacher, the person that's watching your kid, right, teaching your kid, really spending more, quite frankly, probably more time with your kid than you are. You want that person to be happy and well compensated and doing a good job.
Well, it's a great argument for why public education is so great. Many of our politicians don't quite understand public education. We accept all students in the community and we educate them. When we want to get into the differentiation between charter schools or private schools, they have a process in which they can eliminate certain students from entering their doors.
Sure.
We provide all the services in public education for all students. We do not deny them. And when we have the conversation about vouchers and private schools and all that, those particular places don't accept all the students with those that may have some problems that we need some special attention for, and that's what makes public education so great, the resources to be able to meet our students who have all kinds of issues and try to make them obviously citizens that move on and go to college and get a good paying job, and that's what we're all about.
Or go to the building trades.
Or go to the building trades.
That's right.
Yeah.
Earn while you learn.
Yeah, that's earn while you learn.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Let's remember. Let's get rid of college for a little while. Let's have a college moratorium because we really do need to fill some seats in these jobs.
This is where we draw the line of sand with Tom.
College schmollage, Tom. But let me ask you a question. Like as a teacher, as an educator, back in the day when I grew up, there were shop classes, and you went on a track to become a mechanic or trade schools and things like that. Those have gone away. And what's your feeling about trying to bring some of that stuff back?
Do you want my personal opinion on that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
The term that is used in many school districts is college ready and career ready. too many of our schools are ignoring the career ready. And the career ready track is what you're talking about, the trades and getting into the shop classes. And we have these arguments across the state. Our locals are always fighting. Yes, it's very important for the English, math, science, and social studies classes. But we have some students who are going to work with their hands. They need some of those trades schools that are available. So it's something that many of our local administrations talk about, but you're right, they're falling behind. They're closing the wood shop. When I started at Glenbard East in 1995, we had an auto shop. We had all kinds of things. Those have been closed. Our wood shop has been reduced. The number of classes available in the electives has been reduced. So you're exactly right. They like to say career and college ready, but the career ready is kind of getting shortchanged.
Career ready, I like that. I've never heard that term
that
before. Listen, if you are just tuning in, we're talking to Tom Tully right now with the Illinois Education Association. He's the Secretary-Treasurer. We have to take a quick break, but do you mind sticking around for the next segment, Tom?
Sure.
All right, we appreciate it. We'll be right back with the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I am Ken Edwards from the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting next to me, Phil Davidson. What's the name of your union?
The Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council.
Okay. It's easier for you to say.
52,000 members strong.
That's huge, by the way.
It is.
Almost as big as the IEA.
We're getting there.
Illinois Education Association.
Give us a little more time.
I love it. Organizing is good. So anyway, we're back, and Tom Tully from the Illinois Education Association, Secretary-Treasurer, was kind enough to stick around with us for another segment. I find this stuff really interesting because both Phil and I come from the building trades, which is where I spent the bulk of my career, and talking teacher labor is different. It's just different, and you guys deal with a lot different issues than we do. In the building trades. So it's interesting to hear, your perspective on this, and I appreciate your coming and talking to us about it. I think, Phil, you mentioned that this is the 40th anniversary of the Illinois Educational Labor Relations Act.
I believe so. Tom could tell us more.
Yeah, that was signed in 1983 by Governor Thompson.
Wait a second. Governor Thompson? Wasn't he a Republican?
Yes, he was.
Imagine that.
Huh. How do you like that?
Times have changed.
Boy, have they ever. It's 40 years. And you imagine, we were just talking about, Wisconsin. I mean, they were the beginning of public sector unionism. And I forget how long it was there, but, forever. And, once again, it got destroyed.
It is. The history is very strong. We have a short video commemorating the signing in 1983, and you have to really give credit to our organizers who were pre-1983, who were still organizing union members and going on strike and getting arrested and being put in jail for trying to fight for members' rights.
I love that.
And when 1983, that signature happened, we didn't have to do it. It wasn't illegal to do it. We were able to organize our members. But we really have to give a shout out to our organizers and our leaders back in the 70s trying to get that signed and the hard work that was put into it. And it's a great video.
Where can we see that?
Should be able to find it on our website. I believe it's at iaNEA.org, and I believe the video is probably available clicking one of our icons on our website.
Yeah, I saw it. It's impressive.
Is that right?
What have you heard any horror stories from members who were around pre that legislation being signed, of what it was like being a teacher before they had the benefits of collective bargaining?
I think just most of the stories center around getting arrested and being willing to have handcuffs put on you and dragged away to
Can you imagine that?
To a cell.
The teachers getting arrested?
Yes, no, I can. I can imagine the building trades guys getting arrested.
Yeah, that's easy to imagine, but teachers.
That happens often. That happens often.
Yeah.
Like, you imagine, though, just this again, this just sounds crazy in this day and age, right? But we're certainly screaming backwards in some regards. Like, some states are moving forward. Michigan, repealing right to work and the dues checkoff and prevailing wage and things like that. Wisconsin, hopefully maybe gets a shot because they just changed their Supreme Court. But in other states, child labor is back. Can you imagine that?
It's
and so you imagine getting arrested for exercising your right to collectively bargain. I mean, that is just absolutely outrageous. And, I'm going to get off the soapbox in 1 second, but in 1935, the National Labor Relations Act was passed. And in the very first page of it, it literally says that the policy of the United States of America is to encourage collective bargaining agreements, encourage collective bargaining, I should say, in order to maintain labor peace so there's not a disruption of commerce and trade and, quite frankly, capitalism, right? And so it's literally the policy of the United States to encourage this, yet we're still fighting for it, right? And people are still trying to take it away. And, you mentioned earlier, Tom, and this sort of dovetails nicely into that, is why your union will get involved in a school board race. So talk about that for a second.
Yeah, it's very important. Obviously, with 900 locals in 900 different communities, it's important. And the structure of funding for our public schools is done through property taxes. A lot of people don't like how high their property taxes are, but those property taxes do stay local. So you want to have good schools. So when we get involved in 900 school board races, they're funding about 80% of the budget per year is from the local property tax base. So it's important for us to get involved politically in those races because our members sometimes don't like our state politics. They don't like our national politics.
Sure.
Yep.
But they should like their local politics
All
because
politics is local.
it truly has an impact on them to get involved politically to make sure that there is pro-public education voices who are the school board members. So we were lucky enough this past year, April 4th, I think about close to 90% of the races in which we got involved, we won.
90%?
Close to 90, about 88. I don't have the exact percent on it, but it's about 88% of our races we won. We were concerned with some of the dark money that came in from national organizations to try to misinform our members, but we were lucky. We have members in all communities across the state, and with our ability to communicate, our communications department did a wonderful job of sharing facts about why it's important to have the right school board members in your local community. Obviously our message resonated. We won at a high percentage of our races we were involved with, and we couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. Good for you. I mean, we lost 100% of our mayoral race. I make a joke. So do your teachers have to live in the district in which they teach?
No, they do not.
Okay. So, then what do they do in terms of getting out the vote, or what do you do in terms of getting out the vote? Do you know the union members that live in, a particular district and go like, hey, today's the vote for such and such a board election, that kind of thing?
It's good. We have a great question. Our organization has grassroots political activists that we have across the state. We also have a government relations department. We have some lobbyists that work on our behalf, and they message for us to be able to go to the Capitol and make sure that our legislators are on board with some of our ideas, and then having members in every area. We have almost the entire state covered with some representation that we will have a title saying I'm the grassroots political activist for the Effingham area. We have someone we can go to say, hey, here's the information. Do you have a small group that you have that we can get organized? We have the ability to go door to door and get our message out to those, knock on those doors that right now is the most important part. Having all the communities represented is one of our best strengths.
That's an impressive organization to be able to take on a task like that. Are those paid positions or are they volunteer?
They are not. They're volunteer positions. That's one of the things, just to put a quarter in me about IPI.
What's IPI?
Illinois Policy Institute, which likes to misinform people about what's actually going on in the state of Illinois. Their big talking point for many years is our union dues are going to political action. No, that's illegal for our dues to go to political action. We have volunteer contributions from our members that is completely separate, that our members can access to do the mailings within their locals. We have a whole process that allows them to access their own voluntary contributions in their locals to go fight the misinformation that's happening in their particular community. So their talking point of dues goes towards political action is completely false. So that's one of the things organizationally that we have as our strength is our members can tap into money to be able to go fight and have the messaging that applies to their area, because all our messaging is different.
Yeah, and what was some of the misinformation that you were fighting against in the most recent school board elections? Like, what were some of the headwinds you were facing in against the opposition in these races?
Probably the biggest one that I resonated was parents' rights. Everyone was fighting to say parents need to have rights in what's happening in their schools. That's not correct. The parents already have all the rights in which they have within their local. They have a voice to be on different committees that the school board puts in. They have the right to go to the school board meetings and have their voices heard. So it was false to say that the parents' voices weren't being heard. Parents have always had a voice. They're our strongest voice.
What about happened to the PTA?
Right.
Right? Don't they still exist?
Yep.
It's exactly
And
right.
can parents run for school boards if they want to?
Absolutely.
And can stand up at a school board meeting and make their, whatever their opinion known?
And they have access to email to contact an individual teacher if there's a particular chapter that they don't necessarily like happening. I'm a health teacher. One of the classes I taught in special education was health. And they'd say, there's a particular chapter on sexual education. I don't want my son or daughter. Oh, we'll give them a separate project and we can move on. So there's already accommodations for parents.
That was a crisis not going unwasted, and you saw all the people getting up and going, I don't want my kid to do this, I don't want my kid to learn that, and I don't want my kid to read this book. And now we're talking back to banning books, and like we literally once again
we're going backwards.
We're banning books.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to know the districts. Like, I mean, the teachers represent the communities where the schools are, and they know the values of the communities that they're teaching in. I don't think that they're going to go too far off track of what is appropriate.
Why would they? Because
Right.
they come from those same areas, right?
Exactly.
It's not like a teacher lives in Chicago and drives down to Effingham and says, I'm going to teach my
Yeah.
Chicago values down here in Effingham,
Right.
Illinois. That doesn't happen.
Not happening.
Tom, I got to go back to this Illinois Policy Institute. It's a right wing, quote unquote think tank that is funded by, the Ulines of the world and very obviously conservative. Well, like what I don't understand the dog in the fight with the teachers. I just don't get it. They're constantly bashing teachers unions. Like, teachers unions are gonna raise your property taxes, right? We had the same thing during the Workers' Rights Amendment, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right, same thing. We're gonna raise your property taxes. They're automatically going to go up. No, they don't.
They didn't.
Yeah, have they gone up? No,
Yep.
they have not.
No.
So I don't get it. And
The key word?
yeah, go ahead
Money.
and explain.
They're looking to privatize education. There's lots of money to be made if they can misinform people that your particular school district's not doing the job. They want to misinform them that you're going to have a better choice is your better option.
Why would you want to privatize education? Because a company can come in and profit from it?
That is what some people represent. They want to have some of their friends to be able to have money to be made and have tuition be paid to their buddies, and then their messaging is what they want it to be. So they misinform the public. It's definitely about money to try to make sure that their messaging is what happens in the classrooms, and it's not accurate. We're doing a great job. Most of our polling over the last couple of years for our State of the Union for our education that we poll our members, they're very satisfied with public education and with the job we're doing.
So it would be like, Mrs. DeVos, can I use the bathroom? No, you can't use the bathroom right now. Which bathroom do you want to use? There's only two.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
As she makes the decision from her super yacht. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, it's destroy the public unions, and we do have some funding that comes from the state. And obviously, if you can carve out more money that property tax goes in different areas, that's something they can talk about and say it's better spent elsewhere.
And then they, meaning the IPI and these conservative groups, contact your members directly and try and encourage them to drop out of the union, right?
Correct. They try to hit certain times of the year when money might be a little tighter for some of our members and say this is a great time to drop out so that you don't have a certain amount of money coming out of your paycheck. It's right around the holidays in December. Hey, don't you want a little extra money to be able to spend? They're not doing anything for you.
So they get and how do they get the addresses?
I think some of it has come from Google searches. Some of it comes from just some social media. Everyone who shares their information on Facebook and tells them everything about yourself and what year you were born and what your favorite color is and who your favorite sports team is and who your favorite high school is. They pretty simple
And
to find out.
they'll actually knock on your door too, right?
They will. In some areas, they will knock on the door and hand you some misinformation about what the union is supposedly doing.
You imagine somebody coming to the south side of Chicago and knocking on the building trades guy's door and saying, hey, why don't you drop out of your union?
It wouldn't go well.
That conversation's not going to go particularly well, right?
No.
So we don't experience that, but you guys do, and this is interesting, right? That
We have.
We're learning about this.
And you're trying. I know that there's been some success in preventing lists of your members, teachers, that information being made public. Like, why would that be put in the wrong hands? Obviously,
it shouldn't be made public.
No, it shouldn't
right?
be accessible to
anybody.
anybody.
It's just like giving people giving the criminals the cops' home addresses.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just stupid.
Yeah, there's been some new additional laws in Illinois that have protected us from those lists getting in the hands and being easily accessible through the legal process of FOIA and all of that.
And we can talk about this forever. Look, we've been talking to Tom Tully, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Illinois Education Association. We really appreciate your coming down here today. We could spend eons talking about this because I don't even know what I don't know about teachers' unions. Would you be willing to come back one day?
Absolutely.
Are you running for president of the IEA?
I am not at this time.
At this time, I like it.
Yeah.
That's an announcement.
Leaves the door open, though.
Yeah, certainly does. Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We have to take a quick break, and then we're going to finish up the show with some jokes about Ed Maher. You've been listening to The Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everybody, to The Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. He's Phil, and that was pretty interesting, huh?
Great conversation. Learned a lot.
I learned a lot, too. I could talk for hours about this kind of stuff. Not to say anything terrible about Ed because he's the greatest, but, I get to go to Florida, and he's in Italy.
Yeah. Well, you got to talk to your old lady about that one. I think she was.
I could just picture those. This is just like in my mind. I don't know why I picture this, but Ed's a big boy, and
big guy,
and he's Irish,
strapping.
So here's this big giant Irish guy, riding a Vespa around the
with a scarf,
around the drinking a glass of vino or an espresso or whatever it is, around the cobblestones of Rome.
Yes, smoking a cigarette. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to scare some people over there.
You think he's going to come back and with an Italian accent or something?
That'd be great.
Oh, the pizza here is terrible.
I only eat Neapolitan now. He told me he's a pasta fan, so he's like,
he's going to come back about 30 pounds
that's
heavier.
That's what he's saying. Yeah, he's like, this could do a number on my waistline, but no, he's svelte.
He's svelte. That's a good word. I like it. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping he's having a great time. He deserves it.
Yeah.
Really quick, a quick shout out to the employees at the Museum of Science and Industry right here in Chicago. They are trying to organize a union. They have a vote coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks, and a bunch of them were outside of the Museum of Science and Industry. And you know what they're asking for? They were asking.
Tell me.
Okay. You want to know? You sure?
I do.
Okay. They were asking for the Museum of Science and Industry to stay neutral in their election. And
that seems like a minor ask.
And what that means to everybody that's listening is it means that the employer doesn't hire a union buster or come in and put on an anti-union campaign.
Yeah.
And next week we're going to be talking about a contractor with Amazon that got their first Teamsters contract that stayed neutral, and have a lengthy conversation about that. But they're literally out there, picketing and saying hey, Museum of Science and Industry, which, by the way, it's science and industry, right? Industry. Yeah. And,
the emperor word there. Yeah.
Come on. You're going to put on an anti-union campaign against your own workers trying to form a union? That just seems anathema to me. And also,
who's organizing them?
I have no idea. I guess I should know that, but next week I'll know that.
Okay.
It could be independent.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I don't think it's any of the building trades.
No.
But I don't know, where does a museum like that get their funding? Is it taxpayer funding?
A lot of private donations, I'm assuming, is the majority of their share. But yeah, I'm sure there's grant money that comes from the state, from the city.
Yeah, there's got to be.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful museum. But I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the jewels of the city.
And I think we talked about this once before. It's like, it'd be a shame if that, 4,000-year-old vase fell.
Yeah, I mean, some people get a little bit stumbly. It happens.
What? I knocked over the only original caveman that we have here. It's like
Fabergé egg.
My bad.
Let's hope there's no klutzes that walk through there anytime soon.
I don't suggest any of that, by the way, for the record, and neither does WGN.
And we don't know what the museum's doing. This is just what.
No, I don't know, but the fact that they're out there picketing for neutrality,
yeah,
tells me that they must be doing something. So,
yeah.
Hey, Museum of Science and Industry, do not make me cancel my membership. Okay,
there you go.
Right, I think my one-man boycott. Hey, today's been a really
not exactly lightweight.
That's right. Been a good, fun. An interesting episode. I really could talk to this teacher stuff forever.
Yeah, it was a good, fresh perspective.
Yeah, different than the building trades. Right? Different for us. And
you're right, and like we're all union, but they have a way different set of issues that we do.
For sure. So it was really informative. I appreciate your sitting in for Ed, by the way, and also sitting in for me last week, Phil. That's been great. Shout out to Da Vinci Street Productions, our soon, hopefully, to be IATSE members. IATSE, if you're listening, let's make this happen. And we'll be back next week with another show right here on the Workers' Mic 720 WGN. See ya.